couple steps right there. Obviously, sending a follow-up email, even if you speak with them. We know the drip email goes out, guys, but you have to get personal with it and try to add a sentence or two in there that is relevant to whatever their search criteria was, because they're going to be like, I just got the drip email, and then you send them something personal. Here's where I think a lot of agents are failing, and I just addressed this with our team this morning as we have a handful of new agents. We're great in our call center at asking for addresses with buyer leads because we're actually pretty good at setting a decent amount of listing appointments off of buyer leads. But it's all about asking the right questions in the right order and getting their if you're actual physical address. How personal is it if you just sent them a quick thank you note? But we're in this generosity period where we're all about wanting to give referrals, right? And if you just sent them a thank you message and asked them what type of business they was in, you would like to add them to your list to possibly refer them out in the future. With a couple of business cards, how powerful is that going to be when you follow back up with that person and you're like, hey, by the way, did you ever get my note? You're going to have mind share with them versus just another boring follow-up, right? Are you in the market to buy or sell a home? It actually has a personalized touch with it. So when you get somebody on the phone, that should be one of your core questions is, hey, what's your current address? Okay. Obviously, we're all with boomtown, so active, hot, watch, and nurture drips have to be set up. Get them in the right category, and then make sure that the drip is set up. And if you didn't get a hold of them, hit the actual button that's going to go out there and collect all the data, start dripping relevant homes on them, even though you didn't speak with them. Or if you can't get a hold of them, you'd be surprised how many people call you back 6, 7, 8 months later. I put something in the Boomtown forums where we converted a lead that was over 4 years old. That's amazing. Give that up to Boomtown. And also the drip system. And once they got that golden nugget, that golden house that was relevant to what they was looking for, they called us. This is where I think a lot of agents are slacking is the social media game. Nobody wants to be personal on social media. They don't want anybody knowing their business. But getting on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, looking up their Instagram accounts, and sending a short message, I think is huge. But more importantly, if they can see that you're putting out great content. Maybe it's market updates. Maybe it's pictures with your kids. Maybe you're taking pictures with your clients at closings. If any of you guys follow me, you see the social proof that we get with our agents. I put our numbers out there. I put pictures with agents winning awards. I put pictures of my kids, and it's just social proof. So get out there and connect with these people socially. And I've heard some complaints in the Boomtown forum about the two-step process, and I think it's great. Even though we could get spike in bad numbers, the leads that we are getting are going to be a little more qualified with this two-step process. But there's other technology programs out there where you could do a reverse lookup to scan their email address to find the correct number, their social media account, or whatever. So just start reversing that lead, and it's just a lead to get to the next step of quality of that lead to be able to start gaining mind share or attention with that person to be able to connect with them. Voicemail, if nobody answers, I think a lot of people mess up voicemail. If you're not going to drop pre-recorded voicemails with Mojo, don't leave voicemails because your tonality, your energy is going to be off from voicemail to voicemail, and you need to be very laser targeted with your message word for word and make sure it's compelling with the call to action. So unless you have voicemail mastered, don't start leaving a bunch of random voicemails. Text messages, offering CMAs, fair market analysis, relocation package. A lot of people on the internet are doing research on places that they're going to relocate to, so that could be important to them. a quick thank you video. As I get to work with a lot of teams across the nation, we're getting a horrible response rate with just an initial email that goes out, but we're getting good responses with video emails or a quick text message with video, just thanking them for registering, injecting a little bit of humor, and a lot of people are responding with that. So I know some of you guys use BombBomb or other tools or technologies, but work that into the mix, and you'll start seeing some good results. I think that a lot of people don't talk about their unique selling propositions enough, and sending those out in emails, and we'll get into our unique selling propositions. I'm going to give you all of ours today on the buyer side, list, give you some ideas on how to create some of your own, because that is how you differentiate and compare in contrast to what everybody else is doing, and you really have to stick out and get attention. So there's just a few of ours. You guys can see the list. I'm really going to move on. Nurturing the lead is huge, and I think nurture has been a word that's overused in our industry. It's like, what does nurture even mean? And most people think that, oh, I'm just going to put them on a drip system and put them in watch or put them in nurture, and we'll just set it and forget it until they're ready to come back, and I might call them a couple times over this next year. And that's really not what nurturing a lead really means. You know, when you grow a plant and nurture a plant out of the ground, there's like a value add. The roots are pulling, you know, minerals and out of the ground, and it's extracting the rainwater and the sun, and there's just a lot of things that are adding value to that plant to grow. And so we can get into some of that as we get going here. But guys, you have to take nurturing seriously, but also just don't think that boomtown is going to nurture the lead for you. It comes as a direct response to the agent's responsibility to talk about the value adds for the client. I love this. People don't believe what you tell them. However, they always believe what they tell themselves, right? Themselves, and I think that's huge. And so, you're never going to have a 5-6% conversion number reading from a script. And I know there's a lot of scripts out there, and we've coached with damn near everybody in the industry, and I have all their scripts on file. I've split tested scripts. I've mixed and matched scripts, and you really have to lead through education with a solid intro and a close through active listening. When it comes to getting help with money, whether it's insurance, real estate, or investments, you should always look for a person with the heart of a teacher, not the heart of a salesman. But we are salespeople, and we could come off a little too salesy too many times, or get caught reading from certain scripts, especially if we're new. And with Select Homes, it says Select Homes Experts. And how do I get new people ramped up into that expert status and converting internet leads at a fast pace? It is through structure of a call and through some of our content, but this slide right here, a couple of these slides are from Keeping Current Matters, guys. I'm not affiliated with them. We are a subscription, and Darren Hardy spoke at Boomtown the last couple of years. Fantastic content. I actually got to meet him about 4 years ago, but I love this quote from him. To be an expert in any industry, you must know what is happening in that industry, know exactly why it's happening in that industry, and know how it impacts your consumer, but you also have to be able to simply and effectively explain that to your clients. So here's a chart that we use. We use trend graphics where it's tapped into our MLS, and we export this data every single month, and I get this out to our agents. I get it out to our inside sales team. And when you're on the phone with a client, and they're wanting to blame everything on the economy or the neighborhood, you can rattle off some cool stats on month supply of inventory, existing homes, average days on market, medium days on market, and especially if you're an ISA and you're able to have these conversations and rattle off some quick numbers, and you can kind of talk about the why and how and the impact it's going to have on them, and put our marketing behind this, the effect or the net result that they're going to experience, and they maybe got calls for some other agents, you're really going to differentiate yourself through the education and through the data. And you don't want to puke a bunch of data on them, but you do want to be able to deliver accurate data points when needed to make your case with clients over the phone. I promise you nobody else is doing that. Everybody's calling and using slick sales techniques or just reading from a script, or they just don't believe in scripts at all or a structure of a call, and they're just winging it and have no idea really what's going on per price range, or even have that stuff on their fingertips to be able to rattle off. That's update within 30 days. So I think that Mojo and Boomtown coming together was a huge success. I've been running Mojo with Boomtown for about 5 years now. And I've told people for the longest time that we don't have the best prospectors probably. We don't have these fancy scripts and it's just effortless. We put in a lot of volume and generate a lot of leads and built a large database over the last 5 years, and we moved a lot of dirt to be able to find these golden nuggets. And so to get into the mindset to call 500 people in a month, if you've been with Boomtown as long as we have, and you're generating 1,200 leads a month, or 1,000 or 900, you really have to take 10x action to stay caught up with that data and to keep mining those systems. And now that these two have came together and interfaced, it's phenomenal, and you guys are going to see a much higher return on your investment if you actually pick up the dialer with Mojo. If you're scared about spending the $100 or the 160, 70, whatever it is for the triple line dialer, you're coming from a place of scarcity, not abundance, and spend the money and just do it, and then send me a thank you letter 6 months down the road. All right, that's really been my competitive advantage in real estate the last 5 years. So having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset is huge in terms of conversion with our team. I had to take a drink of water, guys. Hang with me. Fixed mindset agent versus a growth mindset agent. This is going to have a dramatic impact on your conversion. Okay, does this person avoid failure? They try to look smart, like they're super smart with all the real estate stuff and they know all their numbers. But if you don't pick up the phone and articulate your unique selling propositions or your value, you're not going to make any money. You have to make those calls. I know a lot of smart, broke agents that are in a fixed mindset that won't pick up the phone and call and work on data management. Left corner, having trouble seeing. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I did a screenshot of some of these other things, so it looks a little blurry on my end too. I don't know what's going on. It was clean before we launched. Anyways, I don't want to change or improve. And so I personally, guys, a lot of people say, how do you find your agents? How do you get them ramped up? For the most part, we don't recruit experienced agents because they have to unlearn and relearn a new way of doing business. And we're very proactive with our education, but also with our databases. And they have to be willing to put in the work. Versus if somebody's been in the business 6 months to a year, maybe wrote a few contracts, they're young, they're ambitious, they're ready to pick up the phone, they want to be coached, they want to be taught. Those are the individuals that I want to work with. Yes, does it stress us out? Does it take more work on our end? But it also builds loyalty. We teach them how to fish. We teach them how to convert. And they go from making 0 to X amount of money, and they're doubling their goals or tripling their goals. But it comes from that growth mindset and eliminating that ego and failing forward, if you will, and just being coachable. How many of us have made a lot of money? How many of you guys have made a lot of money with Boomtown and then didn't make any money at all? Right? It's a roller coaster effect. We've all had peaks and valleys, and a couple, I don't know, it was like 4 years ago, we really wasn't tracking buyer agent data. We was tracking our call center stuff, and I'd have buyer agents like selling 8, 9, 10 deals a month, and then selling 0, and then selling 1, and then selling 3, and then building back up. And I really couldn't figure it out. and you're not going to be able to figure things out until you track or measure. And so I'm going to show you some data points that we track and measure, and I would be radical on tracking this stuff for improvement. But also, when you run a buyer agent team that has 20-ish agents in one market, buyer agents, and they come to you and they say these leads are crap, or why ain't I making any money, and they made a bunch of money a couple months ago. It's all emotional. And at the end of their feelings, there's nothing, but behind every principle, there's a promise. And if they track their numbers and I can look for patterns and behaviors, I can coach them. And I can isolate where the issue is at for improvement, but also show them where to focus on when they have a bunch of homes under contract, because we tend to coddle a bunch of our stuff and focus on getting it to the closing table instead of keeping the pipeline filled. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know why it went blurry here, guys. I apologize. Here's some of our data from our call center from last year: 128,000 dials. Okay. Buyer appointments 468, listing appointments 892, over 1,060 appointments, right around 800 and some confirmed out on the other master tracker. I didn't want to give you guys too much data because I want to show you what buyer agents should be tracking as well. But from a valid conversation, this column right over here, second to last, every 13.3 valid conversations we're having in the call center, we're setting an appointment. And that's also on used data, because our agents are already getting access to the data and making calls before the ISAs get to those leads. As a buyer's agent, if you really want to run a successful buyer agent business, then I would start tracking these numbers. And if you don't have a certain conversion number on our team, I ask that you go back and start tracking some of this stuff. How many internet leads did you get? Offline leads, sign calls, IVR text to writer numbers, whatever it may be. This agent, for an example, is only on boomtown leads, not on any other lead source. This is an 8-week, 8-week shot of their data. Initial contacts, tracking that. Prospects, buyer appointments, showing appointments, not how many appointments they actually had, but showing sessions, how many exclusive agencies, and then buyer pins. This is the way that you're going to run a predictable, mathematical, duplicatable buyer business. The only problem is most buyer agents test out with DISC as a high I, and I'm not going to get into DISC training right now. There's a lot of information out there about it, but we look for high I's. They're great with working with people. They love chatting. The only problem is they don't like logical tracking or numbers or data. None of that stuff is fun to them. And so tracking is going to be a weak point for them. But if you can correct the behavior and coach them up to track, and get them to understand their numbers, and they'll know exactly how many calls they need to make every single week. They need to know how many people they need to speak with, how many appointments they're going to set, but also they know that X amount's not going to show up to the office if they're only running in-office appointments, and they're not going to be depressed because they understand the math. They know how many of them's going to professionally hire them off of a buyer consultation, and then they know how many showing sessions that they're going to need to do before they pick up a pended home. As you can see here, 280 leads here, 217 contacts. So if you do the math on that, this person was setting off boomtown leads for every 8.68 valid conversations. They were setting a qualified appointment. And a valid conversation to me is a valid name and a valid number. That's a valid conversation, and that's a good lead. And so off of 8.5 conversations, they're setting an appointment. Off of that, you can see that the show rate, they set 25. They set 25 in-office appointments. Out of the 25 in-office appointments, they set 17, or 17 actually showed up. So what's 17 of 25%, right around 70% actually showed up to the in-office appointment. 15 of them signed agency, and this agent sold 16 homes. And if you go back and actually do the conversion off boomtown leads, to what actually pinned. This agent closes about 90-95% of their business. That's just right over 5% conversion number right there. So this is these are numbers that you need to track. So each one of our agents is tagged with a living, breathing conversion number on our team, and they wear it like a badge of honor. So if you're new and you're struggling, like, figure out your math and know your math. Once you know your math, it's like, okay, I know the rituals, I know the habits, I know the time management, I have all this figured out. And to remain on our team, there's data that comes from every single agent, regardless if you're selling 9-10 homes a month in our organization. I want to know how many buyer appointments you went on, how many actual professional commitments, agencies you got signed, and then we track what did you pin and what did you close. And then we have another sheet where we actually show them how much they made. We keep their conversion number on tack month to month. If they dip off or having a bad month, we can show them the numbers and patterns and have a logical conversation with them that's not emotional. Because if it's not logical, if it's not emotional, it's sorry guys, got to shut my phone off here. If it's logical, it's a business conversation. If it's emotional, it's just feelings, right? In the first couple years with Boomtown, it was all feelings, and I really couldn't coach or help agents. And then once we put in all of the tracking metrics and all of our spreadsheets and accountability metrics, it's really helped me help them. And if they're having a bad month, they really want help. But if you don't have the data and you don't have the patterns, there's no way you're going to be able to coach on that. This guy right here was my first internet lead agent. I was making every single Boomtown call that came in at this time, and I basically was just implementing Boomtown for myself 5 years ago or whatever. This guy was running leads with me. He was telling me leads were crap. They couldn't convert them. He'd be in the office sleeping, listening to talk radio all the time. He wouldn't track his numbers. He wouldn't do in-office appointments. He wouldn't get professional commitments. And you have to be able to be phenomenal at tracking and being intentional and putting 3 hours of prospecting a day in, where none of this is going to work. And this is a very proactive system, well, at least our system is, and this gentleman didn't make it. And so this is kind of what I want to tie back with mindset. I know there's a lot of agents that have a 1% conversion number, right? 2%. I would focus on getting the 2.5 to 3% conversion number as quick as possible, or go out there and get a coach. Like we've coached with Dirk, Bob Corcoran, Mike and Jay, Tom Ferry's group. We've devoured it all, and so you can do much better than 1%. You don't have to settle, but you do have to go find people that have information systems, the knowledge to be able to get you there. Or you're just going to have a bunch of agents like this guy that's sucking up your resources, sucking up your time. He's killing your culture because he's telling other people the leads are bad. I can't convert them. They're all bad numbers. And he just has a fixed mindset with a badass attitude. And so you need accountability metrics for these type of people. And if he really could have tracked his data, I could have helped him. But he was a know-it-all, and unfortunately he had to get out of the business. And so if you do have a low conversion number, and if you are struggling, go back and start tracking some of the metrics I showed you, and just aim higher. Okay? What time are we on here, Mac? What time are we on?
We're doing well. We're at 30 minutes. We're at 3:34 Eastern, so we're good to go, man. Keep rolling.
All right, sounds good. I'll take another drink of water out of my 10X bottle. So, all right, so cool. Here we go. So the 80-20 rule when it comes to scripts, words, tonality, all this stuff. You guys have heard me put. Maybe if you was at Unite, I touched on this, talked about this a little bit. But I'm a big believer in this. A lot of people are just looking for scripts. They're looking for just a word for word and just want to just checklist their way to a closing, and it's impossible. That's 20% of it. Having a solid intro, being able to have offer, an offer, a value, a benefit, and being able to close. That's 20% of it. And the psychological component of this is being able to get people's attention, hold their interest, invoke desire, and being able to close. I can have the same two agents in our system using the same intro, the same closing techniques, the same unique selling proposition. And why do I have one agent converting at 2.5% and then another agent converting at 5%? The person that's closing at 5% is enthusiastic, they're sharp as a tack, and they also know their numbers, and they're able to attract business and not chase it, and they come from a place of confidence. And and maybe they're even responding faster. I do think response times are huge, and so let's let me give you guys my intro. I'm gonna give you the intro. Some of you guys might heard it before. Some of you guys might think it's long, and then I'll kind of touch on the why it's structured the way it is, and then I'm gonna give you guys my closing paragraph as well, and then Mark's gonna explain the why behind that. So you want to role play with me, Mac?
I got it. I got it.
Ring, 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 ring.
Hello?
Mac.
Yes. Who's this?
Hey, this is Adam Bailey over here with realestate.com. Real quick, I see here you had registered on our website. I personally wanted to give you a call and say thank you for that.
Okay.
Mac, I see here that you looked at a few homes, didn't know if I could answer any questions you may have, or if I could just really understand your situation.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just kind of looking right now. I found your website and I like it, but I don't really know. I'm just kind of looking, man. Thank you.
Right. So we can get into the next step of that with the next slide. I want people to understand that intro is because most people are calling and saying, "Hey, I see you registered on the website. Just wanted to thank you," which was a pattern interrupt, and it took me a while to figure that out 5 years ago. But they're saying, "Can I answer any questions about any of the homes you have?" Right? And they're just leaving it there. And most people is going to say, no, I'm not interested in the homes. I'm just looking, just registered. Um, and the website, forced me to register. I'm kind of a little upset, and I knew I'd get a call. Blah 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 blah. Right. So the key word is ending with their situation. I could care less if they buy a house or not going to buy a house over the phone. The reason I end with situation is because I want to understand your pain or pleasure points. And Mark's really going to get into that with transactional analysis because you guys have heard me talk about it. You've heard other people talk about it. But I want to strike an emotional chord with them as quick as possible. I want to understand their goals. We're professional problem solvers. I want to try to earn trust as quick as possible to help them overcome those problems so they can purchase. Or if it's pleasure points, I want to figure out how to enhance them. But in most cases, they're trying to avoid pain or they have pain points, and it's up to us to resolve them. But that's the difference between influencing individuals and just being an order taker. Can I answer questions about some of these homes? So you really want to thank them for registering on the website because they have landline phone companies calling them, window construction companies. They have all these other people calling them, and then just blah 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 blah. And if you just call and say, hey, I was just calling to say thank you, with the pause, they're just like, okay, thank you, or okay, catches them off guard. Just wanted to answer any questions you may have about some of the homes you saw, but more importantly, I just wanted to understand your situation. And I don't care about anything else but their situation. And most people are going to be guarded, but that's when the fun starts is, when they're like, I'm just looking, and they got their guard up. Because I already intend for them to tell me all these things right here. I don't have time. I'm just looking. I'm not in the market to buy a home. No, let me speak to my wife. I'm working with another agent. I'm not sure. I need to sell my home before I purchase a home. All of these things I intend and I embrace, but the difference is I don't just get brushed off, or I don't look at it as objections. They're actually just buyer statements. And they're looking for me to demonstrate leadership and add value and earn their trust before they're going to open up to me about their situation. So if you've even listened to our calls from our call center, or go to the YouTube page, you hear a lot of people start off just guarded, disconnected, don't want to give us much information. And like Max said, I don't have time, I'm just looking. We embrace that. Fantastic. Most people that register on our website are 6 to 12 months out. But here's what I can do for you today. This is more than just a website. This is a communication tool. We have a full resource center behind this website. But I can customize this account to fit your specific needs, price range, area of town, bedrooms, whatever it may be. So when the homes hit the market, not just with our company, with every company, the listings are sent out to you in real time because I'd hate for you to miss a good deal. Now it looks like you was looking in between 100 and 150,000. Would that be a fair assumption? And they're like, yeah, great. Looks like you was looking in about four bedrooms and up, three, and the Maze area. Is that the only area that you're looking at? And they're gonna be like, well, yeah. Does this cost me money? And you might have a little more of back and forth with them, but when they see you're trying to help them and you could care less when they buy a home or which home they buy, we just want to get this set up for them, then they start to open up. Our rule is if we get a live person on the phone, we assume setting up the e-alert. We don't ask them if we're going to set the e-alert up or if it'll be okay or whatever. We just assume it. Like this is, we're not here to sell you anything. This is this is our value add from our client care center, and our agents kind of take that mentality and that language on as well. And we get a lot of questions. Are you guys even in Wichita? Because nobody else in town is calling them and having that type of talk with them. Okay, and absolutely, we're at 13th and Rock, 21st and Maze. You want to come see us today. And then they start opening up once we go through. A lot of you guys used Bob Corcoran's LP Mama. We've structured our call through that as well, but there's so much more psychology to that thing than just going through location, price, motivation, agent, mortgage, close, check to appointment. There's much more to that. Most people don't slow down and figure out why they're really looking into that area, the struggle to get into that area, just the pain points or the pleasure points associated with all that stuff, and they just never dig deep to really find out that true motivation. Or they just get off track with a call. So straight line theory is you could structure of a call, whatever you're using with quad scripting, however you're using it, you have to be able to stay on track with your intro offer, benefit, value. If you guys are using the LP Mamas or whatever you're using, you have to be able to keep the actual conversation on track because they're going to try to get you off track. Whether it's just talking about random stuff or you have an ISA or an agent that doesn't stay on track, and then just the conversation ends with just a random follow-up. It's not good, and so you have to be able to overcome all of the buyer questions or statements, if you will, to keep the appointment moving along so you can understand true motivation. Some of the things that we use to keep a conversation even on track in terms of a value add is hey, out of curiosity, do you know your credit score? We can let you know that for free in a matter of minutes with our resource center. Hey, do you understand your debt to income ratio? Do you know what that percent is? Because that can have a huge impact on your buying power. And they'll be like, well, no. Well, if you got a couple minutes, I can take a little bit of information from you and keep this moving along. I know you're not looking for an appointment now and you're still 6 months out, but you need to be able to get this information in your hands so you can make an educated decision. Would that be fair enough? Does that make sense? Would you like to see how that could work for you? Just use basic tie downs. And then also, when I talk about nurturing and keeping a lead growing, and you have to use your unique selling propositions to further the conversation, to add value, to be compelling, to get them to take action on their own needs, wants, and desires. Like, for an example, we got the Home Buyer Advantage program with 10 deals in it. And this is where we differentiate ourselves from any other agent because anybody can open and close a door. Anybody can sell them a house, right? It's like, right now we're hearing in the wintertime, we're going to wait till spring. Inventory is low. I think I can find a better deal in spring, right? So, one way to get them to take action or at least start their relationship or why you should meet with a professional negotiator is we have the love it or leave it guarantee. If you actually come in, sit down with one of our experts, you believe they're the person for you, or you come in and meet with myself and you think I am the person that's going to represent your best interest, and we get out and start looking at homes and you find a home before spring and you purchase that home, and then in spring if you find another home and you think that you can get a better deal and you're not absolutely in love with your home, we'll sell your other home for free on the seller side. Now that's definitely fair enough to at least come in and sit down with us because I got about 9 other things that are smoking hot just like that. When's normally a good time where we could get together for a few minutes? Well, whatever, you know. It's just ways to keep adding value to them. Maybe the next time you follow up with them, or value add is we have free moving trucks for life. You know, we have free moving trucks. We have Chevy pickups. You can use them whenever you like for life. You get into the raving fans and the memberships of our raving fans, all the way, you know, from margarita machines to chocolate fountains to, you know, all of our tables and chairs, and you can rent out our big conference rooms, or not rent them out, but have party in there, or use them for business or whatever, absolutely free. And all of that stuff. The home hunter service, you need to be able to pitch the alerts and articulate the value. And being a professional negotiator, the anytime showing program is in our home buyer advantage program. The number one complaint in real estate is communication. Can't get a hold of a dang agent when I need to get a hold of an agent. And one of our unique selling propositions is we're available from 8 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night to be able to show you homes. That's powerful. Nobody else in town is offering something like that, right? Customized loan programs to be able to get you some of the information that I had outlined earlier. But more importantly, a professional, and you want an expert to work for you. We're just not showing partners, and we don't get out and show homes unless you've professionally hired us, because we're a strategic negotiator. And I want to invite you into the office to show you maybe the last 30 deals that I've closed and what I've been able to get for them. You know, one of the things I do is represent first-time homeowners just like yourself. You know, and so anyways, I know I've been on the phone with you for these few minutes, so if I can show you how to make sure the contract's weighted in your favor, attempt to get your prepaids paid for, get you a home warranty, you know, possibly get your closing costs paid for. Wouldn't that be worth a few minutes of your time to accept my invitation to come in and sit down with me today to see how this could work for you and your family, right? So those are some of the unique selling propositions. I touched on a few of them. I went fairly fast. I suggest to be able to create some of your own unique selling proposition, or unique value propositions. It's not a mission statement. It's not distinguishing from competitors saying we sell 1,000 homes, we're better than anybody else. Look at our marketing. It's brief, and it's actual value. Like selling their home for free, there's value tied to it. Moving trucks, there's value tied to it. All of the things they can utilize for life in our Raving Fans program is valuable. We put our money where our mouth is with the home warranty. If we can't negotiate you one, we'll buy you one. The anytime showing program. There's no other agents in town that'll say they'll show homes from 8 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. 7 days a week signed up with us. And nobody else is letting you know your credit score in a matter of minutes, unless they're running a client care center like we're doing and stuff like that. So that has a huge impact on the buyers. And on the seller side, you have to also be able to convert these buyer leads into sellers. You know, nationally, we know 30% of the buyer leads have a home to sell, and that's pretty on par with what we have going on. And you need unique selling propositions to be able to get them to take action. We pitch our fair market analysis for no obligation, which is huge. And then also our 89-point marketing plan. We have 89 different ways to position your property and to proactively get it sold. Versus, I don't know if you sold a house before, but versus what the traditional agent does is they come out, tell you what your home's worth, you agree with it, they upload it into MLS, they go out to the front yard, put the big, nice, fancy sign in the yard, and then they just kick back with their feet on the desk to wait to see who calls them. That's not the way that we do business. We're proactive, and you do want a proactive agent working on your behalf, right? Great. We'd just like to come out and give you a fair market analysis. Just need to ask you about 25 questions to get that process. Do you have a few minutes, right? Also, the flexible commission structure is huge with people. People want choices, Coke or Pepsi. We don't flex up, we flex down. We believe in adding more value and charging more. And so also we do have a program, though, if you sell your home by yourself and find your own buyer, we'll only charge you 1%. And that's what I tell them on the phone, and we'll be able to go over all the rest of the other programs with you. And you'll be surprised by how many people's interested in the flexible commission structure and actually sign up with a percent higher than what our norm is in our market, because we add that value. Value unarticulated is value unappreciated. I promise you guys, cost will never be an issue in the presence of value. And if people feel like that they're going to come into the office and they're going to get value and they're going to actually leave with some value, they'll come to you. You don't have to chase buyers. You can attract them, but there has to be trust. There has to be value, and they have to know that they're working with a professional, and they have to feel like they have confidence within you. If not, you're not gonna attract them. Okay. You have to also understand that buyers have fear. So the reason that we've always heard buyers are liars. No, we just don't ask the right questions, or we just don't address their fear. They have fear of making the wrong decision. Most of them are paralyzed and don't want to make any decision at all. They hate change. They don't. They know that they need to make a decision, but it's just a fear of change, and they're going to just hold out until the very last minute, or unless somebody can impress them through education and all that stuff. Fear of looking bad to others, and so on. And really being able to address that is huge. And so understanding the fear with that, getting their attention, holding their interest through tonality, and being able to prospect standing up, and don't chase business, guys. I tell our people, understand your worth. Okay, you're going to make more money by not running and gunning if you operate out of abundance instead of scarcity. And it's hard as a new agent, and especially the first year and a half working leads. But create these unique selling propositions. Have your own unique personal value propositions, and set appointments, and don't show homes unless you do an in-office appointment. Meet at a neutral site. Go to their house and even do a buyer consultation if necessary. I don't care. But don't work with people unless they've professionally hired you. But make sure you're bringing that value to them, and watch your income skyrocket. I, if done right, you'll make more money working part time than most agents do full time, and not having a balanced life. One other thing I want to touch on. We're up on a couple of minutes here. Follow up is huge. We always hear follow up, right? The money's in follow up. Follow up is king. So as you're growing a database, and your database keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're setting all these to-dos and all these alerts, and then you come in every day and you have all this random to-dos, and it's like, who's really worth following up with and who isn't? Because all follow-ups are not created equally. And I shared at Boomtown Unite a cheesy deal that works. And if you make initial contact with somebody, and if you make an initial contact with somebody and they're trying to rush you off the phone, hit them with, hey, if you had a magic wand, how soon would you like to be able to purchase? Okay? And they're going to tell you, oh, that's kind of funny, 6 months. And then ask them, what needs to happen within that 6 months? And they're going to tell you, and you can even assume, clean up a credit score, save up a down payment, sell your home. They're going to tell you, and then try to rush off the phone. But you want to figure out motivation and what needs to happen. And those are the people that I'd be sifting and sorting and following up with first versus somebody that doesn't give you any information. And so be wise with your follow-ups. I know we're up against a few minutes of time here. Working with Mark with pain and pleasure, I'm going to give you guys my closing paragraph and how to optimize it per each individual situation. So it's not a generic close, it's genuine. And I know he's got that teed up for you guys, and so I'll give it to you next. Through active listening, empathy, rapport, and influencing others is how you change behavior, and I would start practicing this model if possible. This is actually what FBI people use, and when they're working with terrorists, or trying just to influence somebody from not jumping off the roof, or suicide mission. And really through active listening with the optimized closing paragraph is how you're going to change people's behavior. And we do all this making live calls together. There's a lot of stuff out there about role-playing. I believe in role-playing, but I believe in Tony Robbins' approach in terms of the way that he coaches people and trains people, and it's through immersion and behavior training. And Mark's even going to touch on some of that. And so at call night, last call night, we have 23 people listening to each other prospect and jumping from, calls, each person making different calls, and then being able to coach people after each calls to be able to correct behaviors or give feedback on the fly is the quickest way that you're going to train people. That's kind of been another advantage with how I train agents and then helped other people across the nation, is them listening to me prospect or listening to our people prospect, and then being able to give feedback after each call and make corrections on the fly instead of letting them work that whole week or that whole day and then not make any corrections and then role playing in the morning. And it's like, okay, well, I'll go try this on my own again. And there's no corrective behavior. Other than that, I'm gonna open this up. I spit a lot of stuff at you guys, but our whole deal with training our buyer agents is a 6-month program, and I gave you bits and pieces from a couple of weeks in our foundation stuff. Hope you guys get to hang around for the advanced stuff because that's where the good stuff is in this next hour. But I had to lay the groundwork for our foundation and some of the tracking metrics and some of the basic stuff to be able to get to the advanced stuff for some of the new people on the call.
Yeah, that's awesome, Adam. I'm sure a lot of you by now, the wrists are starting to cramp up, trying to get all those notes in. And I've had several questions come in that we'll get to in a second, Adam. But to address the questions about whether we'll be sending out the slides or these examples of the spreadsheets and the tracking and conversion and whatnot, I'll talk with Adam. Keep in mind, y'all, this is proprietary information to Select Homes and their coaching program. But I'll certainly talk with Adam and Mark to see what we can maybe put together as an after the fact sort of thank you to send out to the attendees that are actually here on the call with us. No promises, but we'll certainly talk about this after we get off the call. So just a heads up there. Adam, several questions came in. I'm going to go ahead and read them out to you if that's all right. First one is from Carrie Stronach. She says, is it possible to call too soon? She said that she's found people who are still on the site. They don't want to talk yet.
Right. No, not at all. That's just a brush off. And actually, long term, if you actually take the approach of adding value, most people appreciate it. But if it is a sales type of call, then no, that's going to rub them the wrong way, and I don't want to call this soon. I'm going to hold you once I'm ready, right? But if somebody's calling me and coming from a value add, and this is what they can do for me, it's not too soon to be able to customize the website, let them know what you can do for them as a resource center. And so don't take a sales approach on that initial call. Get into their situation and help them.
Good stuff. Thanks for the question, Carrie. Adam, next question. I couldn't answer it. It might be pretty straightforward, but Justin Miller noticed a little line item on that early checklist you presented, and it was long shot CMA. What is the long shot CMA?
Well, our long shot CMA is just we put if you can get their address as well. I plugged a lot of technology too. We run a lot of different technology, and I don't have relationships or affiliates with any of them. But if you can get that relationship to send them that handwritten thank you note, and then ask them if they're in business, because you like to be able to send out or refer people to them. You also can take that address once you get it. And use something to do like on a seller suite side, or put them in market snapshot or top producer or something like that to start dripping maybe like a generic CMA to them, or a market snapshot is what I was getting at, but I didn't want to plug too many companies on here.
That's all right. Next question from Matt Delhone. What is your conversion expectation for buyer's agent?
Expectation is 2.5%, 3%, and if we're doing and I got a lot of agents right now that a lot of new agents that have been with me. Some of them are actually hitting that number right now, and some are not, and they won't remain on our team if they can't get over that 3% mark, because we have too much training and too many resources for them to take advantage of, and then we have too many people that are hitting on that 4 to 5% model for them not to model after, if that makes sense. Like when it's never been done before, it's impossible. But when you got a handful, or 20-30% of your agents operating at a top tier level, it can be done. That's your benchmark, that's your watermark, and that's how we're gonna that's who we're gonna hold you accountable to, is those numbers.
Awesome, thank you. Next question from Tracy DeMart. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing your last name there, Tracy. She just wanted to know if you could share the tracking sheets. I already addressed that. I apologize. So we'll talk about that, Adam. Moving on,
Uh,
Adam, David Mount wants to know for calculating conversion ratio, do you take the total number of valid leads, in parentheses, he says correct name and phone number, versus
that
number of closings?
No, no. And actually, the number you guys need to really track too is understand what your pin to close ratio is. If you have agents closing at 95% from under contract to close, just track leads that are coming in to what pins out. Well, it's easier on our end. Now, valid conversations, like no, we're paying for a boomtown lead, so I don't care if it's a bad number, wrong number, correct number, a valid conversation. It's still a lead, right? It still costs us the same amount of money. And so I just need to understand what the number is to get a correct ROI from bad data, good data. So that 280 leads that I showed for an example of that one agent. That was raw. That's just raw leads.
Cool. Let's see. I believe this is the last one. Let's see, or second to last. Um, from Gloria Price. Adam, I'm obsessed on the nurture follow up part of all this. When checking in, calling a lead with potential buying in the near future, what do you tell them each and every time you check in?
Mm-hmm. We don't tell them anything. We ask them, what's going on. What needs to happen before you purchase? You saving up for a down payment, credit score. You getting a divorce. Maybe you're getting married and you have a baby on the way. We really get into their situation, and we're really going to dig into how to ask softening statements and hit them with reverses to get into those pain points, because most people don't want to open up about that, but we actually don't avoid that, and we address it head on. And through their pain points, we offer solutions. I gave you guys my closing paragraph for a first-time home buyer, and you guys probably didn't even notice it. But let's say that we discover their situation, and what's a typical situation? So what is it? I'm renting, right? I'm renting. So I'm stuck in this lease. So one of the things that we do is help people just like yourself that are caught up in leases. But anyways, I know you're in this lease in this next year. If we could invite you to the office and show you how to get bought out of that lease, or at least start the progress to make sure the contract's weighted in your favor, you're educated throughout this process, is that going to be worth a few minutes every time to see how this could work for you? But also we're adding value in terms of, do you know your credit score yet? Do you know your debt to income ratio? Do you see any homes that you would like to look at? Like Boomtown makes it so ridiculous to have an optimized conversation. It's scary. And so people that you're following up with, hopefully they've been on the website or you're engaged with them, and we ask them to commit to our website. Like every single home listed with every company's on our website. We have a live person that's licensed manning this for from 8 in the morning till whatever time that you would like. And so if you're seeing that they're doing loan calculations, we printing flyers. Hey, I saw you print a flyer. By chance, are you going to drive by that home and look at the exterior? We would love to set up a no obligation private showing for you, and then we would attempt to go through the pre-approval process and then commitment to an agent. But hey, instead, I know that you're not looking to buy right now, but what if you could call an agent from 8 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night and you're guaranteed a showing, and you're not going to have to call a bunch of random people on a sign or keep going back and forth with the ISA? Don't you think that would benefit you, right? And there's no obligation to this. At least just starts a professional relationship to make this hassle-free for you. And that's what people want, is communication. They want trust, and they want hassle-free service.
Awesome. Hassle free service. Huge plus. All right. There's three more questions in the queue. We'll try and get through them real quick, y'all. Next one's from Doug out of Chattanooga. Hey, Doug. He just wants to know what you use the Mojo dialer for.
Everything.
Everything.
I mean, every single piece of data still runs back through our call center. Like, we've just signed up for 13 accounts with our agents. I'm attempting to get our agents ramped up like through this, but I'm looking at our call center right now, and I have 4 people on a dialer. all doing three-line outbound dials. We run all of our sign calls through there, all of our IVRs, all of our live chats. We have live chat tied with Boomtown. I suggest you get on board with that as quick as possible and find a company. We offer live chat services and delivering information. And then we take that information, also run it back through Mojo. We run all of our expireds, all of our FISBOs. We try to take all that stuff out of everything and streamline everything through Mojo if possible, all of our other lead sources as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And just to quickly touch on the live chat on the Boomtown website, always be careful. We can easily do that from a technical standpoint on our end. You just want to make sure you have a good game plan in place before you consider doing that, as it can very much disrupt the experience of the consumer on the website. So you have to think about the timing in which a live chat prompts a visitor, and also figure out what kind of value you're adding when you do actually prompt a visitor to your site. It can be a nice value add. It can be another nice way to try and get in touch with someone that you're having trouble getting in touch with. But again, it has to be done very carefully. One more question, Adam. Or actually, two more, sorry.
Let me address that one more time, because a lot of people think, oh, you want to just take a customer service approach and you want to deliver as much information as possible to possibly get them to take the next step to a friendly conversation. So Mac hit the net on the head. Give information, ask a question. Give information, ask a question. Don't hit them with any slick sales tactics, or you're going to run people off. And you want them coming back to the website, using it for 4 years, and then taking action.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. Can you call a lead from Chris Savar? Can you call a lead more than once a day? Example, you get a lead at 8 a.m. How many times that day can you contact a client after leaving a voicemail the first time you called? Questionable about that. Before it is too much. Thank you.
I wouldn't call a lead more than 3 times in one day. You don't want to sound desperate, but you do want to display tenacity.
I think that's a good balance. And lastly, from Chris Encounter, I believe out of Hawaii, what is a great voicemail script for a non-qualified buyer who you haven't been able to connect with after a few phone call attempts?
No scripts.
No scripts.
So here is, you want to create curiosity, and we actually coach on this and how to leave voicemails and stuff like this. But if you're Shelly, you just want to. She's our lead ISA, and she leaves a lot of voicemails. And that first one, if you're going to create curiosity, just, hey, I got a quick question for you. Do you mind giving me a call back at this number? Very generic, but it's still kind of like, man, I should call this person back because it seems like they have some valuable information for me. So just very generic, but create that sense of urgency to return a phone call.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think that makes up for most of the questions. There are a few more in the queue that I will respond to one-off here. I think we're a little behind in getting to Mark. I apologize, Mark. Thank you for being patient. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mark. I'm going to allow him to be the presenter, and he's going to run with the second half. Go ahead and take it away, Mark.
Right on. I appreciate you bringing me in, Mac, and good stuff from Adam. And I need to flip over to share my screen here real quick. Gotta share the right screen. Let's see here. Give me a heads up. Can you see my PowerPoint on the left-hand side?
Yes, your PowerPoint is coming through, for me at least. See, how deep is your iceberg?
There you go. Right on.
All right.
Well, perfect. Well, we're going to pick up right where Adam left off, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, I don't know if the desk chairs that you're in, you're lucky right now if you're in a car, if you have a seatbelt on, because if you're in a desk chair and you don't have a seatbelt, you might be in trouble, because we're going to rock it here for a few minutes, and I'm going to give you some information. Quite frankly, I might blow some of your minds with some of the stuff I'm going to hit you with, and I'm also going to, quite frankly, the reason why I have you put your seatbelt on it, because I don't want you to fall out of your chair. I'm going to ask you to question your value system. I'm going to ask you to question what you know about sales or what you don't know. I'm going to ask you to question some of the very training that you've had in your lifetime, because I'm going to hit you right between the eyes with some stuff you may or may not have ever heard before. You may have some aha moments. You may go, holy crap, I had no idea that's what I was doing. I've been doing that the whole time, and he just explained it to me. No wonder it works. So some of you are doing some things out there that are fantastic, but you don't necessarily know why they work. Other of you on the call right now are like, I need some help, man. I need to get better at what I'm doing. And unfortunately, what we do in a lot of places, around the country, we go and we seek an experienced agent out, and we ask them. Well, here's the problem that we have. I know a lot of experienced agents. They've been in the business for 10 years. They've been in the business for 15 years, maybe even for 20 years. And the problem is they don't have 15 years of experience. They have 1 year of experience 15 times, meaning they learn something on in that first year that they're in the business, and they just keep doing that over and over and over again. It may work a little bit. It might not work a little bit. And quite frankly, a lot of the people I talk to are just functionally broke. They make just enough money to be broke all the time. Yet they're the ones we're holding up as esteem just because they've been around for a long time. Just because you've been in business for a long time does not necessarily mean you're at the top of your game. Don't be one of those people who've learned something one time 10 years ago and just keep doing it over and over again. Now, if you're doing it over and over and over again because you don't know what else to do, then, I'm glad you found something that's been working. But I want you to open your mind up to something that might be new, something that you might not have heard before. So we're going to look at some things, and specifically what we're going to be talking about is emotional buying, and we're going to talk about pain. I had the opportunity when I put this session together a couple weeks ago, and I put it together for one of our coaching clients. I had seen a very popular franchise out there, and I ran across one of their YouTube videos, and the guy was talking about pain, and he was talking about pain and pleasure. And I watched this video, which is about 5 minutes, and I was astounded at how little this person who was doing this video knew about pain versus pleasure. They were throwing some stuff out there, some fancy words, but you could tell on an underlying basis they really did not understand what finding somebody's true motivation means. Fair? So we want to look at something where pain and pleasure comes from, and specifically that comes from Sigmund Freud's theories on pain and pleasure principle, and which is as simple as it sounds. Basically, we're biologically programmed to seek both pleasure and avoid pain. Some people are motivated by moving towards pleasure, and then a whole other group of people are motivated more by going away from pain. Psychologists have told us, and they researched the studies that went on, and they tell us that up to 80% of the people that are out there are actually more motivated by pain than pleasure. Now, some would think, well, my client's buying a $400,000 house, or my client's buying a $500,000 house, or $1 million house. You think those are pleasure-oriented purchases. Well, I'm here to tell you, at a psychological level, most of them are not. They may put on the front. The ego may be there that makes it look like it. But when you really get down and start talking to them, ask them one basic question. What's wrong with the house you have now? They're going to spend 15 minutes telling you about it. The kitchen isn't big enough. I don't have enough bedrooms. I don't like the yard. It's not in the neighborhood that we want it to be in. Very, very few people are just going to go, well, I just got too much money. I just felt like getting something nicer. There's a few. It's probably part of that 20%. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to work on the law of averages. If 80% of somebody does it, I'm going to where the money's at. Right? And if the 80% of the people make their decisions that way, that's where I'm going to concentrate my time. So I'll engage you with a conversation about what your wants and your needs and your hopes and your desires are. But at a base level, I am looking for people who have problems. When I wake up each day and I look myself in the mirror, my mantra has to be, there's people out there with problems there I can solve. I'm looking for people with problems I can solve. If you are a problem solver, the people who make the most money in this world are people who solve problems. If you can dedicate yourself to finding people who have issues, problems, and you help them overcome it, they will pay you as much as you want for it. They're not going to ask you whether your commission is 5% or 6% or 1% or 2%, because if you really understand their emotional need that connected to the pain, all of a sudden money doesn't matter. And don't tell me it doesn't, because I've been selling for a long time. And I've outsold a lot of people, and I've sold stuff in the hundreds of millions of dollars. If you find somebody else's pain and really understand their emotional connection to the problem that is at hand, they don't even want to talk to anybody else. Because quite frankly, you're who they're looking for. You get into a situation where they're going to go up against multiple agents on a listing presentation, don't go up against me. I don't care if you're first or you're last or you're second or you're third. It makes no difference, because I'm going to dedicate myself to really understanding their problem. And once they understand the problem, they have no need to talk to anybody else. You say that it can't happen? Well, it can happen, and it happens all the time all over the country. And you're going, well, wait a minute, I had an appointment with you. And you're like, well, we've already selected somebody. Why? Because that other person, that other agent, found their true motivation. Here's what we call the pain matrix. We need to understand that there's 6 different types of motivating factors. We have pain and we have pleasure. Scientists will tell us the highest motivating factor of anybody to take action, to do anything, is pain in the present. If you've got a problem right now and I can help you solve it, you'll want to spend money with me. The second motivating factor is pain in the past, the memory of. This happened to me before. I don't want to feel that way again. Therefore, I will take action on it. Third highest motivating factor is pain in the future. I want to avoid something that has happened to me before. I want to avoid pain, right? Highest motivating factor is pain right now, right? Least motivating factors is actually pleasure. The fourth highest on the list is pleasure in the present. So if I can't find pain with you, if I can't find pain now or pain in the past or pain in the future, fine, I'll flip over and start looking for your pleasure point. But I'm going to look for the pain first because I know it's a higher motivating factor. And then we go into pain or pleasure in the past and pleasure in the future. So we have to start to dedicate ourselves to understanding, our intro, like Adam mentioned, which is, I want to understand your situation. What I really would like to say is, I'd really like to understand your pain. I'd really like to understand what's going on. I want to find out what led you to my website. How can I help you? Those are all forms of, what's going on, man? How can I help you solve your problem? Help me understand your problem. Here's something you may or may not have ever heard of before. You may have heard of the pain matrix. You may have heard pain versus pleasure. You may have read about Sigmund Freud's theories on pain and pleasure, in psychology class. Here's something you may or may not have ever heard about before, and this is where the person whose video I watched really fell down, because you can't really get into somebody's pain until you understand why people do what they do, how they communicate, and why they communicate. Unless you have an understanding of transactional analysis, you're never really going to find people's pain because you're going to go about it wrong. And I'm telling you that there's some very popular questioning mechanisms out there that are designed with good intentions, but they're not designed following the right principles because they ask questions in the wrong order. Okay? So on the left-hand side of my slide here, you see a graphic depiction of Eric Berne's theories on transactional analysis. Now, Dr. Eric Berne, out of the 50s, came out with a psychological theory, which then turned into a therapy. It's kind of an offshoot of a Gestalt psychology, but it really picks up on Freud's earlier work on the ego, the id, the ego, and the superego, which a lot of you heard about when you're in college back in the day or in high school. Here's what you have to understand, and this is what Berne taught us, that within each of us, there are what we call competing ego states, meaning there's different ways that we look at the world based on things that have happened to us, and how we've been imprinted on our brain, basically. Berne used the term tapes. Obviously, they didn't have CDs back when Berne wrote this stuff, but he talked about these tapes that are in our brain or our mind, and they're imprinted, right? And so what he taught us was that there's really 3 positions any one person could be coming from. They could be coming from the parent ego state, the adult ego state, or the child ego state. Now, the child ego state is formed between the time we're born and the time we're 3 to 4 years old. And basically, it's how we felt, right? What we heard and what we saw, and how we felt our caregivers treat us or show us or interact with us in those very early stages. And so there's things that can happen in our later adult life that can trigger a response that happened in those first 2 or 3 or 4 formative years. He goes on to tell us about the parent ego state. And the parent ego state, quite frankly, is from that time of about 4 years to about 10 or 12 years old. And that has a lot to do with not only what we saw right? And we felt, but kind of how people interacted with us, how we learned to deal with some of those things that we felt when we were younger. And then he goes on to explain to us that the adult ego state has more to do with, it picks up kind of from that 12-year-old point and goes on, and it continues to add new information. He calls it the analytical processor of information. So basically, you have one ego state, which is when you were very, very young, what you heard and what you felt. The parent ego state, which picks up from 4 to about 12, of what you saw people do and how they interacted. And those are both finite. Those kind of clamp down. They stop. Those are your early interactions in the world. And then the adult ego state picks up, and it's the one that continues to teach and learn, etc. Now, I'll give you an example. Now, as a child, we may have learned that if we spoke out of turn, that it may, depending if you had a very critical parent, if you spoke out of turn, maybe you were told to shut up, or you were maybe smacked upside the head, right? So now what happens is, as a parent, you're going along, and you start saying things that you never thought you'd say in your lifetime. You start doing things. You start, you're driving down the road, and you hear kids in the back seat, and you turn around and say, "Yeah, I'm going to turn around this car right now." And you think to yourself, when did I just become my dad? Or you'll say something crazy like, "Quit your crying back there. You got something you want to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about." You're like, "Oh my goodness, when did I become my mother?" Because those things are imprinted on our brain. So as a child, we learn that if we talk out of turn, we might get a whack upside our head. And so you may be frustrated one day, and you see your child, talking out of turn or talking back or whatever, and your first initial impression is, "I'm going to whack this dude upside the head." But the adult ego state comes over top of it and says, "Hey, no, that's not right. That's not the way we do things anymore. And oh, by the way, you might end up in jail if you do that, and that's probably not the best way to correct your child." So you see, these different ego states can be triggered by different events. Okay? Now, I know I'm laying some heavy stuff on you guys here, but it's all going to come together here in just a moment. So here's the deal. Adam, you still there? Oh, Adam took a break.
Sleeping on my keyboard. Sorry.
No problem, man. I just got a question for you. You're a parent, right? You have a young son. What's your number one job as a parent? When you think about all the things you have to do, what's your number one job of a father of a small child, and you're out and about in the world? What's your number one job?
Protect him.
To protect them. Exactly. So as a parent, my job is to protect the child. Now, if we're looking at the diagram, and we talked about the parent ego state and the adult ego state and the child ego state, if you were going to deal with the emotional part, the pain, and the definition of true motivation, or the definition of pain, is the emotional connection to the problem. So if you were looking at these three ego states, parent, adult, and child, which one of these ego states would you say would show the most emotion, or be the most emotionally founded? Of course, it would be the child ego state, correct? So if the parent's ego state, or the parent's job, is to protect the child, and we want to be able to interact with the child to get them connected at an emotional level, we need to understand how to work through the parent ego state, through the adult ego state, so we can get to the child. So if I want to get somebody emotionally invested, emotionally connected to the problem, I need to learn how to recognize which one of the ego states I'm dealing with. And I need to learn to understand how I work through them to get to the one that I want. Because when I first call somebody on the phone and they don't know that I'm there, and I answer and I say, "Hi, this is Mark from so-and-so," trust me, the adult and the parent ego state are going to say, "Whoa, who are you? And why are you calling me?" They're not going to let you interact with the child ego state until you get permission. So you want to get somebody, you want to find out what true motivation is? You want to get to true motivation? You need to learn how to pass through these different gates that people have at a psychological level that you didn't even know up until now existed. You just wondered why people always say, "I'm just looking." I'm just looking as a defensive mechanism that the adult ego state has learned that they can throw up at you to stop you in your tracks, because at a psychological level, they're protecting the child, protecting the information. They're protecting the truth from you, and you have not earned the right to get that information yet. So they hit you with the they hit you with the objection right away. So let's look at the anatomy of our opening statement. Adam hit you earlier with the opening statement. Here's our intro. Nothing super fancy about it until you start to break it down. And so you say, earlier Adam said, words matter. Words do matter, specifically in the intro. Because if you don't hit the intro the right way, you're not going to get permission from the adult ego state to interact at an emotional level. You're not going to get permission to ask questions like, where do you want to move to? What location do you want to be in? You're not going to get permission to ask people why they want to move. You're not going to get permission to ask them questions about motivation. You're just going to get stonewalled. You're going to get the Heisman, and you're going to get off the phone. You're going to call your salesman and say, you know what, those leads suck. No, the leads don't suck. You just aren't very good at what you're doing. Now, I'm sorry if that just annoyed some people. I'm sorry if that just ruffled your feathers, but I'm here to teach you and train you, not make you feel good. Right? It's not a bad lead, folks. It's a name and a phone number. Why can some people take a lead, a name and a phone number, somebody says they're just looking, and find out, well, it's actually somebody's sister who wants to move, and that their sister is in fact not working with an agent, and their sister is in fact moving to Las Vegas, and here's why, because her husband is going to find, just got a new job. How come one person can find all that other out, and the other person got, well, I'm just looking, and that's it? Because they understand how they have to be able to move through the different ego states to get that information. So when you see this intro that's up on your screen right now, let me break it down for you. Here's the whole intro. Hi, this is Mark Benefield at WichitaKSRealty.com. I noticed you had recently registered on our website, and I wanted to personally call and say thank you. But maybe, more importantly, find a little bit about your home buying situation. Now, these elements that are in here, that are in red, are here for a reason. And the reason why they're here is directly related to the transactional analysis part I mentioned earlier. The very first statement, hi, this is Mark Benefield at WichitaKSRealty.com. This is an intellectual statement specifically written and designed to appeal to the adult ego state. When you call and say, hi, this is Mark, I want to talk to Betty, how are you today? That shows up a red flag right away. They want to know who you are, what you're about, why you're calling. If you don't hit them with that immediately, right? If you don't tell them, they're not going to open. You're knocking on the door. They're not going to open a door. They're protecting the people inside. If you don't hit them with the analytical information right away, you have not passed their first test. So this is Mark Benefield, WichitaKSRealty.com, and they're like, okay, I got enough. I'll listen a little bit more. I noticed you had recently registered on our website, and I wanted to personally call and say thank you. Now, once again, you knocked on the door because you rang the bell, right? And they opened the little peephole and they looked out and they said, hey, I'm so-and-so of WichitaKSRealty.com. And they said, okay, I'll listen. The next thing you have to do is you have to grab their attention and you have to hit them with a pattern interrupt that is specifically designed to create rapport and satisfy the parent ego state. Because remember, the parent's keeping you away from the information. They're keeping you away from the thises and the whats and the who's and the pain and the pleasure. They're keeping you away from it. They're not interacting with you yet. So you may not think this is important, but when you say, all I wanted to do was personally call and say thank you, it immediately interrupts their pattern because the adult ego state did not think that was going to happen. They thought you were going to go into a sales pitch because that's what normally happens. So when you hit them with, I just wanted to personally call and say thank you, and you stop and you pause and you let thank you sink in for that moment, you're like, oh, okay. And when you do it, and you do it just the way I just mentioned, the way Adam did it earlier, you're going to hear that pause on their end, and they're going to go, oh, okay. And what they basically just said, all right, I trust you. Why are you calling me? Psychologically. They have now made that step aside. You've created rapport because you weren't like everybody else. You didn't come across all salesy. They let their guard down. They stepped away from the door. And they said, okay, you can come in and ask me some questions now. And at that moment, you hit them with less sales stuff. You hit them that is something that's designed specifically to keep it on the factual plane right now. We can't get emotional yet. We just want to learn a little bit more about your home buying situation. That is created specifically to create mutual agreement. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to answer questions. They understand what's going to happen on this call. They can now step aside and allow you to interact with them. You want your just lookings and all that other stuff to go down? Nail this intro. Nail this intro. Nail this intro. You're still going to get some, but you're going to get less. Right? You've got to understand what's happening at a base psychological level. It's not enough. This is why we say we're now about scripts, because I can tell you just to read this, and you can read it. But if you don't read it, and you don't emphasize the fact that you want to personally call and say thank you, and if you don't pause there, if you don't understand what the pattern interrupt is and how it's designed to create rapport, you're just going to read it, and it's not going to mean anything to you. So we have an outline here for you to follow. Let's take a look at something. We have a multi-step selling process here that we use and we teach our agents. The first step is creating rapport, right? The second step is creating mutual agreement. The third step is finding true motivation. This is what we call our select homes selling system, basically. Sometimes you hear it referred to as lion selling. It goes hand in hand. So the first thing we do is we create rapport. The second thing we do is mutual agreement. The third thing we do is now start to find true motivation and pain. So let's back up a moment. The first thing we did was create rapport, right, with I want to personally call and tell you thank you. The second thing we did was build mutual agreement that I want to learn a little bit more about your situation. And once they get permission and they say, okay, you've now created mutual agreement, you cannot start to ask questions about why somebody wants to move, where they want to move, how they want to move, how much money they want to spend. You can't do that until you get through these two gates. You can try, and some people are just naturally chatty. They're high eyes, and they'll just tell you everything. It doesn't really matter what you do. You can just call and say, hey, I think I got the wrong number, and they'll start telling you their situation. But for the other 80% of the world, they don't roll over that easy. Right? So you may think that's not important, but like I said, once again, it is. The three steps to our selling process, the first beginner, there's actually multiple steps. It goes from true motivation to resource to decision, but we're only going as far as the third step today on this particular webinar. Okay? So just to recap the point I made a moment ago was in order to receive permission to interact with the child ego state or the emotional part of the person and to get your questions asked and answered, you have to first pass through the first two initial stages, creating rapport and mutual agreement. Once you've done that, right, you're able to move forward. Now, the way you create rapport is not by trying to find something relatable or talking about the weather or finding common ground. See, you've been lied to for the last 40 years of sales training. That is not how you create rapport. That's small talk. The way you create rapport is done on a psychological level. And the way that you do that is exactly the way I just mentioned earlier. I want you to think about this for a moment. We teach and we tell our people to sell like a doctor. Hey, Mac, are you there? Interact with me for a moment if you're still alive.
I am here and listening intently.
Great. Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you been to the doctor any time in the last 5 years?
Yes.
Now, not the free clinic. We're talking the doctor.
An actual doctor. I've been to an actual doctor.
Okay. So when we went, I won't ask you HIPAA regulations at all. I won't ask you exactly what was wrong with you. But my guess is you went in and you went up to the front counter, and they probably, after you signed in, et cetera, gave me your insurance information, they probably handed you a clipboard, right?
They did.
And on that clipboard was what?
Let's see. I think a bunch of personal information. I believe they asked for maybe a history of any kind of serious illness or things that they should be aware of. I think that those.
They eventually got down to the part in the bottom where there's like an outline of a man right there or a woman, and they ask you what your problem is today, and they ask you where it hurt, and then they ask you what the pain threshold was, 1 to 10, and you put all the information in there, how you got hurt, what was happening, all that stuff, right? You filled it all out.
Exactly.
So so your appointment was, let's say it was at 1 o'clock, so now you've sat in the lobby, it's like 1:45, right? And so they finally call you back into the office, and a nurse comes in, and you hand your clipboard to the nurse, and she weighs you, and she takes your blood pressure and all that stuff. But then she looks down at the clipboard, right, and what does she do?
I'm not sure. She reviews it and repeats it back to me.
Probably asks you questions like, okay, so what brought you in today? And you're thinking to yourself,
Right there.
I know you're looking at the clipboard. I know I wrote it down, but you know what? I'll be nice today. I'll just tell you, I hurt my knee. Which
Yep.
knee? She says, which knee? Well, it's the right knee. She goes, okay, well, how's that feel right now? 1 to 10. All right, how'd you do it? Okay, I was playing basketball with my friends. Okay, great. The doctor will be right in. So now it's about 2:30. Doctor finally rolls in, right? Pushes his little card in there. He comes in, and what's he do? He says, he shakes your hand and says, hey, I'm Dr. So-and-so. What's the first thing he does?
Ask me what happened.
He
Or
asks you what happened. Now you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I wrote that information down on the clipboard. I know the nurse looked at it and reviewed it. I know she gave it to you. I know you already reviewed it. Why the heck are you coming in here asking me what's wrong? You already know all the information. Why don't you just fix me, diagnose me while you're here? And in that moment you realize, well, because he starts doing what, though? He starts what?
tinkering. He starts, testing some things maybe.
Yeah, asking questions. So even though he pretty much thinks he knows what the problem is, right? I mean, he knows you got a hurt knee. He's reviewed the file and says you hurt it playing basketball. He knows that it's swollen on the right side, and it's about a 5. Even though he knows all that stuff, he comes back and asks you anyway, and he says, so I hear you hurt your knee. And he says, and you say, yeah. And he says, it's the right one, right? And you say, yep. And he says, how'd you do it? Well, I was playing basketball. He says, okay, well, can I ask you some questions? And he says, yeah. He goes, well, were you running, or were you on one foot and did you pivot? He starts asking you a bunch of questions, right?
Right.
He may even start to poke it a little bit and probe it. He may poke it a little, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he's doing, this is what we try to do. We try to get people in our company here and the people we work with to sell like a doctor, because even though we think we might know what the problem is, aka they need to buy a house, or they want to sell a house, we still have to poke and probe in any way to find out the real information so we can diagnose it properly. So what does a doctor do? He doesn't presuppose he knows what the problem is. A doctor already knows his diagnosis. A doctor pretty much knows what a diagnosis is before he walks in the room, but he needs to find out what's going on. Does a doctor waste time talking about himself? Does he say how long he's been in business and how many knee surgeries he's done and look at his diploma on the wall and I was 14th in my class? And no, he doesn't do all that. He makes this all about you and you only. How does a doctor find your pain? By asking questions. There's a term that they have for doctors who make a diagnosis without a thorough examination. What's that called? That's called malpractice. A lot of us, whether you're on this call right now and you're an ISA or you're an agent on this call right now, a lot of us are guilty of sales malpractice. We are guilty of making a diagnosis for somebody before we really even understand their problem. We think because they called us and we called them they were on the website, we went to their website, we called up and found out, and we talked to them for 3 minutes, and then we try to suggest that they meet with us right away. Well, we need to get you in here right away. And they usually say no. And they have a whole bunch of objections. Why? Because you haven't even diagnosed their problem. They don't trust you. You haven't worked through the gates. You haven't went from the analytical, through the adult ego state and then down into the emotional connection. You had to do that with the doctor because you had to go through those different steps. You put all the analytical information that came down first. Somebody came in and asked you some questions. Then you start to feel like you can really tell them what's wrong and what's happening. You've got to stop thinking you know the answer to the problem. It takes a tremendous amount of ego strength, that when you know the solution to the problem, that you don't give the answer and you seek to understand first. Because our ego tells us, I want to show them how smart I am. Our ego shows, I want to show them how quickly I can take care of their issue. I have the answer to their problem right away. I just stay right on script. I just roll right through them. I don't even give them a chance to talk. Whatever they say, I just bring them back to the same place. It doesn't really matter. Tremendous amount of ego strength to say, you know what, I think I understand the problem, but let me really find out. Typical questions that realtors use to qualify. Typical questions that we use to qualify people. What location is the prospect looking to move to? Why is the prospect buying or selling their home? What price range is the prospect considering? Has the prospect begun the pre-approval process? Is a prospect working with an agent? Now, I ask you a question. Are these things that the prospect needs to know, or are these things you need to know? These are very selfish questions, my friends. They're important. We have to find them out. But when we just launch into, well, let me learn a little bit more about your situation. We say to them, well, what location are you thinking about moving to? Well, I want to move to Las Vegas. Hey, that's fantastic, because we're taught to acknowledge, right? That's fantastic, and keep it positive. Hey, that's fantastic. Las Vegas? So what price range are you looking in? Stop. What? What price range am I looking in? How about you diagnose first? You want to find emotional pain? Slow your roll. So Las Vegas, what's taking you to Las Vegas? This isn't rocket science. So what's taking you to Las Vegas? Oh, well, my husband just got a promotion, and we're moving there. Fantastic. Hey, what kind of work is your husband in? Oh, well, he's an astrophysicist. Wow, that sounds like really important work. You guys must be really excited. So I'm just curious, are you guys moving up from the type of home you have now to a larger home, or help me understand what you guys might be looking for? Well, we're really going to be, he's going to be getting a nice salary now, and he's going to be moving up, he's going to be moving forward. Fantastic. Have you given any thought to what the price range might look on? Now, see, I went from where you're looking to move to price range, but I slowed down enough to ask a couple, 2 or 3 questions in between to find out what was really going on. Because guess what? I'm going to need that information later to close this thing. And when Adam talks about optimizing the close based on the information you gathered, the analytical information, about where and why, right? You've got to get beneath the surface. You got to go like the doctor. You got to go further down. It's not enough to simply ask what location you want to move to and how much do you want to spend, what your price range is, and have you talked to. Those are all important questions. They're important to you, but they're not important to the prospect. We teach a process here called list reversing and softening. Okay? You can't just simply ask people just question after question after question after question. If you do, you start to become interrogative, and people don't like that. If you do, you start to sound way too salesy, and people don't like that. You have to get really skilled at communicating and asking people good questions. Right? You can't always just say, well, why do you want to do that? You can't be blunt. You can't be harsh. You have to use empathy. You have to use understanding. It's not enough to have one softening statement in your repertoire. And I always know an amateur salesperson when I hear this. When I ask them a question and they say to me, hey, that's a good question. And I think to myself, you're dang right it's a good question. That's why I asked it. Why don't you answer it? There's nothing wrong with a softening statement that says, hey, that's a good question. But if that's the only one that you use and you use it over and over and over again, and I ask you 10 questions and every time you respond to me, hey, that's a good question, I can tell right away you're trying to use a technique, and quite frankly, you're kind of an amateur. Why don't you expand that of which you learned in your first 6 months and learn a whole bunch of softening statements? Why don't you learn things like, hey, that's a great observation, or, help me understand, or I appreciate that question, or, I don't get asked that a lot, or, a lot of people ask me that. Why don't you expand your communication vocabulary away from just one thing, which is, hey, that's a good question, which, oh, by the way, which is overused all the time. See, we do everything we try to do everything we can through our we spend a tremendous amount of money on marketing. To differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, on advertising. We spend all this time trying to make ourselves act and look different than everybody else that's out there. We'll flat tell them, we have more experience. We'll tell them, we're going to communicate better. We tell them all this stuff. We do all these great things, spend thousands and thousands of dollars on back-end systems, and the first thing we do is we open our mouth and we sound like a salesperson. And all that stuff, that whole house of cards that you built, all comes tumbling down. Because now you just sound like everybody else. You just sound like everybody else. You just start to expand your vocabulary and really look and understand, how do I soften a question and then reverse that? Your job, this is a great mantra that I have that I say it to a lot of people, and some of them look at me a little bit crazy, but your ultimate worth, and quite frankly, the size of your paycheck. As a sales executive, a real estate agent, a sales professional, whatever you want to be, you're going to call yourself, your ultimate worth, your ultimate size of your paychecks has more to do with the information you gather than the information you give. You hear the mantra, selling is not telling, but people don't understand what that means. You should be a great gatherer of information. The more information you understand about your prospect, the more information you gather about that person on the other end of the phone, that potential client, the less you have to sell. The more I understand, the better the level and the depth of my question. If I have to tell you that I have experience, if I have to tell you I'm the number 6 guy in town or the one guy in town, if I have to tell you my sales volume, if I have to tell you all that stuff, I'm not selling, I'm begging. People should understand through the level and the depth of your questioning and your ability to connect with them on the analytical and then the emotional level. They should be able to understand that you know exactly what you're talking about. They should be able to understand that you have experience. They should be able to understand that you've been there for a while. They should be understand that you've been through a lot of transactions. You don't have to tell them. You just do it. And if you do it and it happens and all those stars line up and you meet with somebody, you sign agency and you go out there to sell them a house and you negotiate the home and then you go close and then afterwards they just, hey man, this must be old hat for you. And you look them in the eye and say, no, that's the 3rd house I ever sold in my life. And their jaw drops and they're like, what? We thought you've been doing this for 10 years. No. Adam said earlier, perception is reality. If I ask the right kind of questions, if I soften, if I communicate, if I reverse, and I really dig in, I think of that doctor mentality, I'm going to gather much more information, and people are going to connect with you because there's another piece here that's not written that we're not going to go over, but it's about building trust with people. How do you build trust with another human being? What is your strategy to build trust with someone? If you sit down across the table with me, how are you going to build trust? You're going to say, oh, we're going to find common ground. No. Next, please. The way you're going to build trust, there's 3 elements to building trust. One is you have to be credible. You show your credibility by the level and the questions that you ask. You have to be reliable. You got to do the things that you say that you're going to do. And the third, and probably the most important element, is you have to be able to become intimate with people. And intimacy is built with 2 ways. One, through frequency of contact, and through self-disclosure. The more information you give me, the more information you self-disclose, the more trust is transferred between the 2 of us. The more I can get you to talk, the more I can tell you about your situation, the more questions I can probe, the more I can ask, the more trust is built, the much more likely you are to submit to my suggestion here in a moment that we should get together and meet. If you don't take the time to find out about me, about my situation, about what's going on, why should I meet you? Why should I meet with you? I'll just keep my guard up and keep telling you, hey, we're going to go on with the process. All right? We have this sheet that you see up on your screen right now is a thing called a little device I use called boxing notes. And when I'm in an interview with a person, I use this thing to keep track of what their pain points are. Excuse me, I need to go back for a moment. I keep track of what their pain points are. And so when I'm in an interview with somebody, if I'm doing a role play, and I start to ask the person questions, and I'll say things like, so, help me understand your situation. Where you guys, looking to move to? And they say, well, we're thinking about the west side of Wichita. So I write down in the box, I'll write down west side of Wichita, right? Over here where all the X's are. Right. And then I would keep talking to them and say, well, why the west side? What's going on, with you're thinking about? Well, my husband just got a new job. So over here I'll write down new job. I said, oh, well, that's fantastic. Help me understand that. Tell me a little bit more, right? Tell me more about that, which is just a simple reverse, right? We use a technique on this next slide here called the iceberg technique. And it's, if I can find my cursor, it's represented by this document here, which is nothing more than a set of questions that are built specifically from transactional analysis to take people from the analytical information, the adult, through the protector down into the child ego state. So when I say to you, well, could you tell me a little bit more about your thoughts about moving? And he says, well, my husband got a new job. All I'm basically saying is, can you help me understand your situation? I'm appealing once again to that adult ego state. I can't go right down to, well, how much money were you thinking about spending? You see, money has an emotional component with most people. I'm not allowed to ask that question yet if I want the truth until I deal with the fact of why they're thinking about moving. Some people say, well, I'm just here looking on the website. No problem. A lot of people come to our website, and a lot of people we talk to on a daily basis, quite frankly, are anywhere from 6 to 18 months out. And Adam has taught. Well, just real quick, let me ask you a question. If you had a magic wand and you could pick a date when you'd be in a new home someday, when might that be? Oh, well, that might be 2 years from now. Hey, that sounds great, man. We really wish you luck on that. Let me ask you a question. Why on earth would you ever think about moving away from where you are now? Get ready to get your boxing note sheets out because they're getting ready to hit you with a whole bunch of pain. Well, this place just isn't really big enough for us, and, we're going to have some kids next year, and it's not really a nice neighborhood, and we want a better school system, and, oh, okay, well, hey, I really appreciate you sharing that. I'm just curious, what are the kind of things that have to happen between now and then? Just curious, right, which is a reversing statement. It was actually a softening statement. My reverse comes up to what has to happen between now and then for you to be in a position, in the next couple of years. Well, we really need to start, working on our credit. We're really not sure what we could, qualify for. We've got some bad situations. Well, hey, tell me a little bit more about that. Well, it's been really hard. I was out of work for 6 weeks, and okay, well, can I make a suggestion? Well, sure. Well, we have some great partners who could really help you kind of set a path and a track for you, one of our lending partners, who, if we ask a little bit of information from you, ask you a few questions, we might be able to find out some very specific information which would help you understand exactly how far out you are. See, I wouldn't have found any of that out if I didn't take the time to be like that doctor and start reversing and asking questions. I need to find out, can you help me understand? Can you tell me some more? Well, how long has that been how long you been thinking about moving? Why in the heck would you ever want to move? Right? You want to find out the real pain? You got to be patient. Don't try to slam people in appointments in 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. Sometimes you can get an appointment that quick. Sometimes you can't. Right? More than likely you can't. You need to be able to take your time, understand there's psychology at work here, right? And understand that there's bigger issues that are going on that if you don't take the time to truly seek to understand, you say you're a problem solver, then you really need to seek to understand. Or you're just trying to get some money out of somebody, or you're just trying to set an appointment, or you're just trying to sell the house. Oh, you sell some. You're going to sell a whole heck of a lot more. You're going to set a whole heck of a lot more appointments if you take the time to really, truly understand and use some of these techniques that Adam and I have hit you with, and I've hit you with today. Pain, true motivation, is the emotional connection to the problem. You get in a multiple agent situation, be the first one to find the true situation. Have a real conversation. You're going to win every time. Call me back and tell me that you did, because my guess is we're going to be able to celebrate some of your victories. So we have another slide or two, but we're going to kill it there. The iceberg shows a question. How deep does your iceberg go? Remember, the real money, the real issue, the real pain, the real concerns are beneath the surface. You've got to work at getting beneath the surface.
Love it, Mark. This is awesome stuff, man. It's really taking it a lot deeper than even I expected, and we've chatted a few times before this. So thank you for, first of all, sharing with us, and second of all, kind of wrapping it up in a timely manner to allow our audience to ask some questions. Before we do that, I just wanted to share with you guys and also all of our attendees some of my biggest takeaways. I had a bunch that I sort of jotted down throughout. From Adam's conversation, it's really, what is your value proposition? So you need to define that and communicate that. If you're just looking to sell a home, get that commission check and be a regular real estate agent, as you put it, Mark, you're going to be the functionally broke, or I think it was you, or it might have been Adam. Just don't be the functionally broke agent. So figure out a value proposition. If you don't have one, work hard to get one. Do something different. I like that you pointed out if all you can get out of a lead is that they're just looking, then you're doing it wrong. So I thought that that was a great point, and it should be especially for the brokers or ISAs and in here, if an agent is saying that their leads are just saying, oh, we're just looking, then that should be a red flag to you that maybe they're not being trained as well as they should be. There's an opportunity for improvement. That should not be the only information, especially if they're having conversations with that lead. Let's
You
see.
should
What's
you should
that?
embrace. Yeah, you should expect just looking, but then you got to start adding value and digging deep, and really positioning yourself to extract this other information. So most people let them in the call. Well, I'm just looking at force registered me, or as Mark said, it gave me a Heisman, or they just brushed you off. And most people's like, okay, well, let us know, once you're ready or whatever. But that's really where the conversation actually begins for us.
Right.
I assume I'm going to hear that. I assume that every single person I call is going to say just looking. So when
I
they
think,
do, it's no surprise, and I don't get emotionally invested or connected to if that happens. It's just like, okay, hey, no problem.
yeah,
A lot of people do that, and we know right where we're going to go. We're going to go right to the next step. We're going to just keep going and keep moving. And some people are truly just looking. But it doesn't mean I can't find a little bit of information about them that might help me in the future.
right. I think that's important. Just digging in and learning as much as you can so that you can set appropriate follow-up measures after the fact.
Exactly.
With internet leads, that has to be the objection that you expect, and therefore you should always have something to overcome that. Two more things that I wanted to point out before we get into the questions, y'all. Mark, I really loved the point you made about if you're spending all that money on advertising and systems, if you open your mouth and sound like a salesperson, that house of cards falls apart. Ultimately, it's all that money you're spending isn't really the value isn't being shown because you're not really executing on ultimately the most important thing, which is the value you're trying to show and the connection you're trying to make with the leads. So I thought that really was a nice touch. And then one of the last things you said: be credible, be reliable, and be intimate. So those were my major takeaways.
That comes from that equation, the credible, reliable, intimate. Actually comes from a book called The Trusted Advisor. And I suggest, and I openly put that in forums and stuff, I suggest that if you're in sales at any rate, you go out and find that book called The Trusted Advisor and really dig into it and understand it's a book written by a consultant for consultants. And since that's who we really strive and want to be, then we probably ought to learn how to be one.
Right.
So that is a fantastic book, The Trusted Advisor. The name of the author escapes me at the moment, but go out and find it and read it.
Awesome. Thanks for that little tip there. Okay, so to the questions. We had a couple here. From David Mount. What's the biggest mistake that your buyer agents make that prevents them from converting leads? That's a pretty good question.
Not taking action.
What's that? Not taking action?
Not taking action. We train like this 7 hours, 8 hours a week with our agents, whether it's virtually, whether it's live, whether it's physical. Like I literally just got done running an hour and a half sales meeting with 30 agents before driving to across town. So they have the information. So they know how to execute. If they don't take action, that's the number one thing. So getting people to have that growth mindset instead of that fixed mindset. And if you have a fixed mindset in our environment and on our team, you're not going to make it too long with us. So
right. Okay, let's see. I've got two questions from Gloria Price. Looks like she's been really dialed in and paying attention, so I want to make sure we get a couple for her. She asked what to do when leads get defensive with an intro like yours, Mark, that you introduced there. Back off, keep asking questions, even if they get annoyed at the first sentence. What's your strategy there?
Could you repeat the first part of the question for me again, please?
Yeah, what do you do when leads get defensive with an intro like yours?
Get defensive because I said thank you and then said, hey, I just want to learn a little bit more about your situation. How defensive could they be?
Right.
Oh, they can
Yeah.
say, well, they're going to say, well, I was just looking, or, I didn't really want, I knew you guys were going to call me. Hey, I completely understand. I
Let me
completely understand. Show empathy for them.
look,
Yeah.
look, let me
Empathy.
address this. The prospect don't have an issue with you asking about their situation. It's a limiting belief that salespeople have. We just opened a new office in Kansas City, and we're ramping up Boomtown and buyer agents there. And I have a couple other older gentlemen that just cannot ask what their situation is right up the front. They think it's too intrusive. They think it's too aggressive. And quite frankly, we've never had somebody say, "Why did you ask me my situation?" Most people are like, yeah, they'll tell you the situation, or they're going to be guarded with that information and withhold it from you until you can go through the correct levels or steps that Mark went through. But it's a limiting belief on our end. The suspects or prospects have no problem with it, and we don't get pushed back, and we talk to 4,000 or 5,000 people a month.
Right. And then Gloria's second question, this is pretty specific. So we'll see. It might fall into sort of that limiting mindset topic that you mentioned there, Adam. But as an average out of 20 leads, how many are really truly willing to open up and let you learn about their situation?
Right. So I just put this in the inside sales group. I run a ISA expert page, but um, it's your conversion is going to come down to your life experience, your background, and just how well you can articulate yourself and communicate. So the same person in that same lead that's not willing to open up and give you information and be honest with you, like the next person that calls them, they'd be willing to explain their situation, give all the information to them because they are coming from an angle as a trusted advisor slash somebody that really understands their goals, their motivations, pain points, what they're trying to accomplish, but that person trusts them to help them get there. So I
Right.
do think
And
that's what
that
it
and that
boils
has a lot to do with the model that we utilize here as well. I mean, we have all our leads go to agents. Agents get the first crack out of them. Some of them don't convert, and we have our ISAs that come up behind them and are converting appointments off somebody who just talked to an agent the day before that said that they were just looking, but now we set an appointment. It's like Adam said, different life experience, different tactic, different tonality. We come in from a customer service perspective, from the ISA, as opposed to the sales perspective. And so that's why we have multiple people touching these things, and that's why we enjoy the conversion rates we do, is because we get more than one person's life experience, conversing with these people.
Right. And as from a personal experience, it's always been very confusing to me, keeping in mind that I work at a software company for real estate professionals, and then I've, never necessarily sold real estate, but it's always been confusing to me the sales approach. Selling a home has to be a very, in-depth process, and you bring up a great point about the service approach. I've just always felt like that has to be the right route. You have to provide a level of service to establish that rapport, and ultimately they're going to be the ones willing to work with you. You can't just sell someone a home; it's too much of an investment. It's one of the biggest investments someone will make in their lifetime. So it's always been very confusing to me. So I really love that you guys are really focusing on this service approach and just digging in and learning about these people, so that you can ultimately communicate with them and get them to work with you in the future.
For the disc people out there, understand there's not a higher D dude bumping around this website right now than me. Okay, but when I'm on the phone with somebody and I'm all S, I'm all Mr. Empathy. In fact, my kids will be like, "Oh, he must be on a sales call because who's that dude? Who's that guy talking right now?" I'm a completely different person, because don't take the energy and don't take the thought process here with the execution. And the execution is proper tonality, proper pacing, proper pitch, proper voice, and being empathetic and asking the right questions. Don't get the two confused.
Awesome. Yep. Nope. Can't get them confused. Hey, so I think we've gotten through most of the questions. There are a few bits of praise here that I want to share with you guys, Adam and Mark. Certainly as a thank you. Alex Took here says that y'all's ISA training is amazing. Do it. Hashtag just do it. So
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alex.
Alex.
Yeah, yeah.
that's huge. Alex is a longtime boomer, so that's high praise coming from him.
Right.
David Mount really says crazy awesome insights. Thank you guys so much. Let's see, Kevin Hall here. Great adaptation of Sandler sales into a real estate world and great slides to
Hey, hey,
support the
hey,
concepts.
who wrote that?
Kevin Hall.
Kevin Hall,
Kevin's great.
you're on to me, brother. You're on to me, Kevin.
Another student, it sounds like.
Give
And
me a call, Kevin. Let's talk.
so yeah, definitely. And then there was one last question. I think I know the answer. I might even be able to answer it. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. David asked, "What's the best response for just looking?" And I'm going to use Adam's earlier answer, which is if you had a magic genie that was able to, um, help you get into your home, when would you get into it? 'Cause I probably butchered
Now,
that, but
when people, yeah, well, just looking, so you can use, you really don't want to use just looking right up front unless they're trying to rush you off the call. Then you want to make sure that it's a legit follow-up and they give you an actual timeline, and then you follow it up with what needs to happen so you understand the true motivation. So yeah, if you had a magic wand, how soon would you like to move into your next home? But if people tell me just looking, like they want you to shrink and I expand, like outstanding, fantastic, perfect, no problem. Most people that register on our website are X amount of time out, but
yeah,
let me tell you what I can do for you today in terms of whatever your unique selling propositions is, whatever you're going to offer that's on the back end of the website in a resource center, customizing the home hunter alerts, and then once they see like this is not an aggressive call, this person is really attempting to help me and understand my situations and problems, then they start opening up, and then you can make at closing attempts if you feel like it's the right time to close off of, one of the things I do is specializes in is resolving pain points, enhancing pleasure points, helping people achieve their goals, getting from point A to point B. So anyways, I've been on the phone with you for a few minutes, so if I can show you how to net this experience or net this result, is that going to be worth a few minutes of your time to see how that could work for you? So that's the closing paragraph, guys. One of the things you specializes in, draw a line and write pain, pleasure, results, goals, accomplishments in there because it's optimized to whatever they're looking to do. So you're speaking to them. You're speaking to the emotional piece to this. So anyways, I know I've been on the phone with you for a few minutes. I appreciate you being open. So if I can show you how to net that result, what you talk about the experience that they're going to achieve if they take action on these pain or pleasure points or goals. Is that going to be worth a few minutes of your time to see how this could work for you and your family, right? So that's huge, guys. So, anyways, hopefully y'all loved it. And 2 hours ain't even doing it just for. We gave you guys a 500-foot view, and hopefully y'all appreciated
We
our
can go
time
all
today.
day, man. We can go all day. Love this stuff.
yeah. No, I certainly appreciate this, having you guys get on here and share your wisdom with our community. It means a lot to me personally. I'm sure everyone else is getting a ton of value out of this, Adam. So thank you. Thank you to you as well, Mark. This is great
Thank
stuff and
you. Anytime.
concepts that are beyond me and new to me. So I love learning about this, even if I don't have any daily practical application to it. But yeah, I think there are a few more questions in the queue that I'm going to respond to one off.
We're
Um,
here.
more specific questions. Otherwise, we're more or less finished with the presentation. If you all need to, go along and get to your appointments, set some appointments, go for it. Otherwise, I'll be sitting here answering questions. I think Kevin Hall wanted to connect with you guys, maybe you and Mark. So, Kevin, I will work to.
You can give him my phone number, my name. That's fine. I'll be happy to chat with him.
Okay, perfect. And then I think Adam, I'll sync up with you afterwards about maybe what we can put together as a follow up for all of our attendees. I know we've had a lot of questions about what we can share, can't share. Is this recorded? Is this live? So, more to come there, y'all. I'm not going to commit to anything in particular A lot of what they're sharing is proprietary, as I mentioned. So we'll certainly talk about what we can provide to you all as a thank you for joining us.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's huge. I know Mac was a little worried about the 2 hours and retention rate. So we had about 95 people sync in with us. We had 92, 93 with us, and then we lost maybe another 15 in that second hour. So that's huge with retention. So thank you guys for your attention and your time. And we brought some very basic stuff, pretty advanced if you're not practicing on this level. And so hopefully you guys at least understand how we operate 7 hours a week with our team and how we ramp up agents and ISAs and took some nuggets. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the last thing is if anyone's still here and has any questions that come up or want to touch base with Adam or Mark, they're pretty active in our communities on Facebook, so just be sure to ping them. I'm sure you're not too thrilled that I'm telling people to message you, Adam, but
And we get messages. We get messages all time of day and night, man. We do our best to answer them whenever we can. Sometimes it's not till the next day, but don't be surprised if you get an answer back at 1 o'clock in the morning either.
Well, hey.
Half of the community would probably say 6 months for me. So, and I think Boomtown community. I put a lot of stuff out there, and I try to stay active and just keep some basics out there and just keep created with what we have going on to help inspire other people to let people know what's possible. I even told our team today it's not about being the smartest guy in the room and working less. It's really about working smarter and working harder and just having that mindset of growth and couple that with a great work ethic and continuously learning. That's really how you're going to continue exploding and expanding a business. But it attracts people that want to work with people that are leading from the front and actually putting their money where their mouth is and putting the hours in and studying and implementing. And I make calls at call night like this. This Thursday, I'm going to make calls on the east side with people listening. And so as an owner and somebody that's running the sales team, they can appreciate that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Be a part of the team's efforts for sure. Certainly, the credibility and rapport thing that Mark talked about a lot. So get in there and get involved, man. Cool, guys. Well, I'll let you all go. Any parting thoughts, Adam and Mark, before we shut her down?
Hey,
I'll let Mark go.
I'd say, man, I was gonna steal Adam's line, man, but I won't do that. Go ahead, buddy.
What's my line?
I know what you want to say before you hang up. Go ahead.
What? Just do it.
There you go.
Just do it. That's all I got left, guys. So.
I just want to encourage. Just encourage people, man. I just want to. Go ahead.
Go ahead, bud.
I'd say just encourage people, man, to continue to learn and get better. Look for stuff that other people aren't doing. Dig into, read, but don't necessarily read the same stuff everybody else is reading, man. I read stuff that nobody else is reading. Right now, I'm reading a book on Wilbur and Orville Wright. Right? I mean, and I'm also reading a book about motivation, man. But expand your mind. Look at things, different types of ways to do your job that aren't necessarily the same ones that everybody else is doing. Open your mind to different ideas and stretch yourself out of your comfort zone, and look for places that will do that for you. And I just encourage people to do that.
Yep.
So thanks for the opportunity. I'm going to run. I've got a nice person here who wants to work for us. I got to
go. Thanks, Mark.
And I'll follow that to leaders out there, team leaders out there, and for owners or for people that are looking to duplicate agents. It's not enough just to understand real estate. Some days I don't even feel like I'm in real estate any longer. I feel like I'm in the personal development business, and we have exhausted all of the training resources in real estate, and I feel like everything is just tweaked and it's just more of the same. And really getting outside of the box with training is huge. And so, like what Mark said, studying different people, different training platforms, just not that are in real estate, to find some nuggets or how you could innovate and implement into your operations. Just like for myself, a book I'm reading is Coactive Coaching, right? I'm learning to just coach coaches on our team, and I need agents have leads under them, so we have teams within a team. And before I was just selling homes, and then before I was just training the whole team, and now I have to figure out how to coach coaches within our team. And so it's just it's an ongoing process, and I think that you have to stay humble and stay active in your education. But for myself, most of my valuable stuff has been outside of this industry, even though I have great mentors with other coaching companies and other leaders with organization that I couldn't have probably done and put together as quick as I did without Mike Gerbich's help and investing in all the other coaching companies within real estate. But don't be afraid to search out externally outside of the industry, because there's a lot of answers out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Real estate can learn a lot from other industries. I can tell you that. So great stuff, guys. All right, Adam. Thank you so much again, my friend. I'll give you a call right after this. To anyone else still listening, thanks again for joining us. We're gonna shut her down now. We'll follow
Thanks,
up
man.
later. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye.